But I wanted to make a contribution which in part celebrates a very important thing, and that is the election of the Labor government in the Northern Territory, which has a particular interest in looking at the budget, I might say, and particularly the proposals by the Prime Minister, that another spur-of-the-moment thing, you know. Lights are on, I'm not sure who's at home, but nevertheless he pledged to introduce a GST floor, a threshold to ensure no state receives less than a certain share of revenue from the tax. Now that's going to be of particular interest to people of the Northern Territory, and no doubt the new Chief Minister of the Northern Territory, Michael Gunner, will have a particular interest, as will his Treasurer. The new Treasurer for the Northern Territory is Nicole Manison, MLA. Now, I wanted to talk briefly about this election, not to gloat so much, although I'd like to, but just to make the observation that it's a very rare occasion when you see, in fact, I think this is unique in Australian history, that we've seen the major opposition party in a parliamentary forum in Australia be reduced to two. So there are now only two CLP members in the Northern Territory Legislative Assembly. The former Chief Minister, Mr Giles, who was the member for Breitling in my own town of Alice Springs, blue ribbon Liberal seat, gone. He's no longer there. In fact, he packed up so quickly you couldn't see him for dust. He's gone from town and we don't know where he are. But we've got a fair idea where he's not going to be, and we know he won't be in the Legislative Assembly. But what's important to note about— there are a number of things of importance to note. Of course, all the new members on the Labor side, and particularly, I might say, Dale Wakefield, who took over his seat at Breitling, and another really unique win, first time in the Northern Territory's history, that Labor has ever won Katherine, the seat of Katherine. And Sandra Nelson, a formidable candidate, defeated a former aspirant to the Chief Minister's position in the Northern Territory. And Willem Westra Van Holt, you remember the midnight coup. The midnight coup. He turns up in the middle of the night and says, "I've got the numbers. I'm going to be taking over as the Chief Minister this morning." By 10 o'clock the following morning, what happened? They're your mates, mate. They are your mates. They are your kith and kin. So understand who we're talking about here. And but I wanted to just make the observation that this parliament is unique. This parliament is unique. 60% of the cabinet positions are being held by women. So historical firsts of great proportion, really. Firstly, only two CLP members left in the place. Secondly, we've seen the incumbent Chief Minister knocked off his own seat, and the seat of Katherine fall to Labor for the first time ever. And we now have a significant majority of women in the ministry. And that is a very important thing. Good for us, good for the Labor Party, good for Australia, and an indication to our friends opposite that it's okay to pre-select women. It's okay to pre-select women, and you could do a better job of it. You might try a bit harder to pre-select more women so we can see a greater representation of women on the Conservative side of politics in this country. I'm pleased that the Leader of Government Business agrees with me. Good. Why don't you do something about it? And I might just make the observation that no, stay as long as you like, son, but just make sure that you find a way to get more women into the parliament. Mr. Speaker, I beg your pardon. Congratulations, by the way. So it's a great moment in Australian history, this election. and I've observed territory politics for almost 4 decades, and the last government was the worst I'd ever seen. There's no question about that. And the new government in the Northern Territory has a real challenge ahead of it because of the state that the Northern Territory was left in by the previous government. Not the least of which is confidence in the government, because they were so adrift, so far removed from the concerns of territory community. Bring your desk next time, will you? So adrift from the concerns of the Northern Territory community that they just had no respect for the community or indeed each other. And I think that means that Labor in the Northern Territory under the leadership of Michael Gunner has a significant task ahead of it to again win the confidence of the community about what good government is.